and I teach in a primary school. Can you hear me? Everything okay? I come from an area in the southwest of Ireland, and it is called County Kerry. And I've heard of that. And it is a very famous county for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is that it has the home of the Skelligs Michael. And it was one of the biggest, it is a World Heritage Site. And a lot of people come to visit every year. And I will show you some pictures now. And I hope you enjoy them. Okay, so my name is Ursula, and I'm from from Kerry, which is down here in the southern part of Ireland. And it is home to Skellig Michael. And some of you will have heard of Skellig Michael because it is a World Heritage Site. And here it is very, very beautiful, but it has something in common with Italy. Because the sword of St. Michael is a list of all the shrines in Europe that form a straight line. And these are the shrines that it is a mysterious imaginary line that links 7 monasteries from Ireland all the way to Israel. So according to legend, the line represents the fact that St. Michael inflicted a blow on the devil and created this line. So the first is Skellig Michael that I showed you the picture of. Star Wars fans will recognize this one. The next one is in England, and it is in Cornwall in England, and it's also a very famous sanctuary to Saint Michael. The third one is Mont Saint-Michel in France. Now, the next two are in Italy. And I will try to say them: Sacra di San Michele in the Italian Piedmont, and the Santuro di San Michele Arcangelo in southern Italy. The final 2 are in Greece and in Israel. So we are connected through our religion, or through our Saint Michael, with Italy through these shrines. So I'm a teacher and I teach with Vivi Orlandi. And I will introduce my co-host. First is Soraka, and she will play some music for you. And Soraka is from County Clare. And County Clare is famous for the Cliffs of Moher, which you will recognize from some famous films such as Harry Potter. And Clare is known as a very, very famous county for music and singing, but also for the warmth of its people. Soraka plays in a band called the Turf Shed, and they're a famous County Clare band, and they will be performing in a very, very unusual venue. Our next co-host is Kevin, and he will be telling us about the famine. Kevin is a famous Irish author and a professor of English. He has written a very, very important book called The Best Pubs in Dublin, and also another, this is a very important book for you if you come to Ireland. And also he has written a book about pub culture in Ireland, which has gone down really well. He has studied the music and the pub scene and the culture of Ireland. He comes from a beautiful part of Ireland known as Westport. Now this is Crowpatrick, and it is a famous mountain which is a backdrop for the beautiful town of Westport. It is a magnificently famous mountain which is spectacular in all seasons. And he comes from a beautiful town of Westport which has lots of traditional music, but not only that, it is also famous for the devastation caused in it during the famine. So between the 3 co-hosts, excuse me for flicking, we have the west coast of Ireland covered, from County Mayo, where Kevin is from, to County Clare, the Cliffs of Moher, to myself, down in County Kerry, where the Skellig Islands are. Now I want to hand you over to Sorika, our famous traditional musician, who is going to tell you about Irish music and some Irish instruments and give us a little demonstration. Thank you, Sorika.
Thanks, Ursula. Hello, everybody. My name is Sorika. So first of all, my name is an Irish name, and Sorika is the Irish for Sarah. Like Ursula, I am a primary school teacher in County Clare, and I also teach English for Vivi Irlande during the summer months. So as Ursula said, I have a big interest in Irish traditional music, and my aim tonight is to explain to you all about Irish traditional music and how we as musicians aim to keep alive the traditions that have been used in Irish traditional music since famine times, which Kevin will talk about later on. So I play this instrument here, if everyone can see it. And this instrument is called the concertina. So the concertina is played using 30 buttons on each side. Inside the instrument, there are little strips of metal, and these are called reeds, and air is allowed through the instrument. It causes the metal to shake, and these produce the sounds. So like, okay, so this is called the concertina. I have been playing the concertina for over 20 years. Before the pandemic, I used to play in pubs and festivals all around Ireland and abroad. So obviously in Ireland, we have been very much affected by COVID-19. We are in lockdown at the moment here in Ireland, and we can't travel outside 5 kilometers. So I presume you are also in lockdown in Italy, is that right? Is the situation the same? Yeah?
Yes, more or less.
Yeah, okay. So as a result, we cannot perform as musicians, so we can't travel anywhere. So for a place to perform, the only place we can perform, me and my music group at the moment, is in churches in our local area, because they are the only areas that are big enough for us to social distance. My music group is called the Turf Shed, and we perform traditional Irish music together. Has anyone ever heard of the term turf, or do they know what the term means? Anyone? No? Okay, so turf is a type of fuel that is made from peat soil, and we burn it for fuel in Ireland. Long ago, people in Ireland used to store turf together in a shed, and I'm just going to show you an image of what that looks like now. So it looks like this here. Can we all see that?
Yeah.
So here is the shed part, and the turf is stored both outside and inside. Now, our group has practiced in a building like this, which was a turf shed long ago, but it has now changed into a music room. So it's quite different on the inside. I am going to show you 2 videos of our group performing. In the first video, we are playing music for 2 young Irish dancers, 2 young girls. Their names are Anya and Siobhan. They are 2 Irish names. In the video, they are wearing Irish dancing dresses, and they're also dancing in Irish dancing shoes. They're a bit like ballet shoes, but they're slightly different. The musicians in my group, there is myself on the concertina. There's a woman called Caroline who plays the cello. There's a man called Jim who is playing the piano. There's another man called Joe who is playing an instrument called the accordion. It's very similar to my own, but it's slightly bigger. And finally, there is another woman called Caroline, and Caroline is playing an instrument called the fiddle. Has anyone ever heard of the word fiddle before? No? Okay, so the fiddle is very like the violin. It's the same instrument, but we refer to it as the fiddle in Ireland. In the first video, we are performing for dancers, but in the second video, we are playing the melody of two well-known Irish songs. The first song is an Irish song that's called Mogilla Mar. So I'm going to just show it to you here. Okay, so this is the Irish version up here. It translates into English as my gallant lad, or also my brave lad. So it's describing Ireland as a person, and the country is mourning the loss of a brave man who has left our shores. And in the second song, it is a love song, and it's called Eileen Og, which is Irish for young Eileen. This song is about a man describing the loss of his love, who is a woman called Eileen. So if you see there in the first line, it says Eileen Og, and that the darling's name is. So he's referring to his loved one. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to get Ursula. You might turn on my video for me. And I can describe as the video goes on. So these are two dancers.
And we are wearing our Irish dancing dresses.
So we have Jim here, Caroline, who's playing a fiddle, and she'll play the cello later on. This is me on the concertina. This is Joe on the accordion, which is very like my instrument. And this is Caroline on the fiddle. This is Siobhan, and this is Anya. They're wearing traditional Irish dancing dresses, and these are called soft dancing Irish shoes. They're dancing a type of dance that's called a two-hand reel. It's a fast dance. So a lot of children in Ireland would learn these dances, and there are other types of dances as well, but they're all predominantly fast. And it is a lot of these dancers then would go on to compete in Irish dancing competitions. So have we issues there, Ursula? Have we?
Hi, Sorka, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay. What's going on now?
I don't know. Ursula is sharing the video, so I don't know, is she there?
What is happening? Ursula? Just a second.
Yeah. I think she might be cut out, is she?
Yeah, maybe the line.
Yeah.
Okay, will you play the concertina while we are waiting for?
Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to play.
Sorry, Gaia, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Kevin. You can move on to me whenever you want, Circa.
Okay. Yeah, I think Ursula is gone. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so if you play one tune and you can move it on to me then.
Yeah, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll play the two songs that would have been in the video. Oh, I think Ursula's back in actually, Gaia, there.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to play Mogilla Mar, which would have been in the video, and I'm also going to play Eileen Og, which is the other song that's in the video. So I'll just give you a short little bit.
It was me that told her to.
That's the first song, and then this is Eileen Og. So I hope that was okay. If anyone has any questions, you can let me know. So I'm going to pass it on to Kevin now, and Kevin's going to talk about the Irish famine.
Hello? Can you hear me? Italy?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, everybody. How are things in Italy? As Ursa said earlier, we have very bad weather here in Ireland this evening, so that's the disadvantage of living on the west coast of Ireland. I see some familiar faces here. I see Lorenzo. Hi, Lorenzo. I saw Tommaso Fassini there. Hi, Tommaso. And I also saw Valentina. Valentina, you were in my class last summer. How are you?
Fine, thank
Okay.
you.
Very good. I'm very good, very good. You look older. You look older as well. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little 10-minute kind of tutorial on the history of Ireland and look very briefly at the main themes, not just the famine. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to bring up something here to show you. Okay, and I'm going to show you a couple of slides. So you might recognize that. That's Ireland. The most common metronym or name used for Ireland is the Emerald Isle. Do any of you know what an emerald is? What colour it is even? Shy?
Very green.
Well, good. An emerald is green. An emerald is a jewel that you can wear on your hand. And the name for Ireland is the Emerald Isle. Now, by far the thing that has influenced the history of Ireland most is the fact that we were colonised. We had the unlucky position of being beside England or Great Britain. Now this map here is not drawn to scale. You can see where Italy is in relation to England. But for 700 years roughly, we were a baby sister of England, the big brother. And England, of course, as you know, the sun never set on the British Empire. They had countries all over the world. And for most of our history, unfortunately, we had a situation where we had a dominant, rich English class living in the typical big house, while the Irish people lived in smaller and smaller cottages. Now that was okay. There were a number of uprisings. Anywhere in the world where you get a country that's colonized, you're going to get uprisings. one of the most famous, if you happen to be in Ireland's beautiful county, it's Wexford, was the 1798 rebellion. These guys here were called pikemen. The pike is the skill you have, the tool they have in their hand. However, that was all very well. There were a number of battles, people died, but there was something that came to Ireland that changed everything. Now, something that killed so many people, nobody could have seen it coming. And it wasn't war and it wasn't violence. Does anybody know what it was?
Yes, it was the Great Famine.
Good. And more specifically, it was that. And what do you see on that screen there? What do you see? That's a particular vegetable. What vegetable?
Potatoes.
Good. And what happened to the potato in Ireland? Well, you might not know the word, but it got a disease, and the disease was potato blight. Now that might sound okay. It got a disease and it died. The problem was everybody grew potatoes. And because people had such a small amount of land, the only crop that could sustain the family and pay rent for their land was the potato. So when the potato disease came, it was called in Latin phylora festans, the potato blight, it destroyed the country. It's not possible to say exactly how many people, but the estimates in the history book will tell you 1 million people died and 1 million people emigrated. And since the famine, Ireland has never regained the population it had. Now, Ursula mentioned different areas of Ireland and how they were affected by the famine. If you look at this map, Ursula talked about where I am. I don't think I can use an arrow, but you see up here in Mayo, you can see that it says over 30% of the population of Mayo either died or left. Now you can also see down here in the very south in Cork, Skibbereen was a town there famous for the famine. The number of people, thank you, Ursula. Now what's interesting is as you move to the north, you will see yellow areas where there was a very small reduction in population. And a lot of this particular land, apart from being good, was owned by Protestant and under British rule. The north of Ireland, and we'll come to this a little bit later, had quite a separate life. And as you know, the Republic, as you probably know, the Republic and Northern Ireland, if you could draw a circle roughly around Northern Ireland, Ursula, are two separate countries, but we'll talk about that. And one other point to note is you will see the cities, particularly Dublin and Belfast, where the population actually increased because the poor people who moved from land and who didn't have enough money to immigrate to England or to America were in the cities. Okay, there shows you the population, the very highest population. Sorry, these are the immigration figures. The blue, America, the red, Australia, and the green, Canada. Now, what is not in this particular diagram is immigration to Britain, because that's quite hard to quantify. You will see in the years between 1841 and 1850, 1.2 million people virtually immigrated to America in that 10-year span. One of the big things, just while I have an Italian audience, is the Irish immigrants got to America largely before the Italians. And there was a lot of conflict historically between Irish Americans and Italian Americans. They argued over wages and conditions in different jobs, and it often led to violence and street fights. So now, of course, nowadays we get on very well with Italians, but in the past, there was a lot of conflict, particularly in the American cities on the eastern seaboard. Okay, now Ursula mentions I live here in Westport. Can you see that's Croagh from another angle, the famous mountain? And it's a pilgrimage mountain. St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, the story is that he stayed up there 40 days and 40 nights. So people come from all over the world to climb the mountain. Now, what this is in front of you here is what's called the Famine Memorial. Those of you that have been to Westport might recognize this. Gaia, you might recognize it. It's just a mile away from my house. And as you can see, it's a ship. And what these particular types of ships were called were coffin ships. Now, a coffin is when you die, you're put in a coffin and you're buried. So if you look at the detail of this picture, you will see on the uprights a skeleton. So I know it's a little bit morose, I suppose, but this famine ship symbolizes the amount of people that died on their way to America on the terrible coffin ships and on the way to Australia, I should say. However, and there's the story that I mentioned earlier, before the famine, the population of Ireland was over 8 million. The population of Ireland now is just under 5 million. So you see there from 1841, the huge drop in population that continued right up. The 1950s were a particularly bad time in Ireland, very impoverished, and then we've had a rise in the last while. Okay, so that's the way the population has gone. We now have a population of somewhere around 4.8 million people. So I need to go to the next slide. Okay, the other theme of Ireland, when we ultimately achieved freedom and after the famine, was Ireland has the Catholic Church and Catholicism in common with Italy. Now this picture here is what was called the Eucharistic Congress. Have you heard of that? No? Well, it was the single most famous gathering in Ireland ever for the Catholic Church. It was in 1932. And you see there at the bottom, it says, 1 million kneel at benediction. I presume you know this word benediction. It's the same in Italian. So the early decade, Ireland, I should say, achieved freedom in and around 1922, finally, was dominated by a Catholic conservative administration and government. One of the great highlights of Ireland in the 20th century occurred when this man came to Ireland. Who is this man? Come on, people.
Pope Wojtyla.
Yes.
Good. Pope John Paul I. And he came to Ireland in 1979. And it was by far the biggest occasion, certainly, of my life that I remember. And I remember going here, this particular picture, to Knock in Mayo, and everybody went. It was a huge occasion for Ireland. And many people, historians, look at Ireland in the 20th century as a country before the Pope John Paul I came and a country afterwards. At that time, we had no immigration into the country. The 1980s were to be a terrible time once again for Ireland. We had a huge immigration outwards. But here's an interesting photograph. Now, who's in this picture? What's the name of that Pope? What's his name?
Francis.
That's Pope
Francesco.
Francis. Now, who's sitting beside Francis there? That was our Taoiseach. He doesn't look very Irish to you, does he?
No.
No. One of his parents is Indian. And the other, he is also gay. So that would have never happened historically in Ireland. So Ireland has, from a Catholic country, become a very secular country over time. That's not to say the Catholic Church hasn't lessened in influence, but apart from that, the most dominant theme of modern day Ireland, and it was in the news last week, Ireland is the only country that has grown its economy during the pandemic. The only country in Western Europe. We actually have grown our economy. And there's one single reason for that. And what is that? We in Ireland almost have two economies. On the news last Wednesday, Intel, have you heard of Intel, the American corporation, announced that they were, we're going to spend €7 billion on this project in Kildare, the largest project outside America that they have ever done. So we are very dependent on America, multinationals as an economy, but the dominant motif of modern day Ireland is it's a rich, it's a secular country, and it's a very welcoming country. So I would welcome if you have any questions that I might be able to answer you for you.
Yes, I have a question for Sorka, because I want to ask if in Ireland is popular among young people to dance this traditional music, because Italian people don't do it.
Yeah, it's really popular in Ireland, especially where I'm from in the west of Ireland, because we have a phenomenon in Ireland called river dance, a show. Has anyone ever heard of it? Yeah? Okay, so river dance made Irish dancing really popular in Ireland. So lots of young children start when they're about 5 or 6 sometimes, and they learn the basic steps. And then if they're interested, they keep learning and learning through the years, and they compete in competitions called feis. It's an Irish word to do with a competition, and you can earn different qualifications and different categories. You can win different levels of skill, and if you keep competing at all these different levels, you will eventually, as an adult, can audition for shows like River Dance and Lord of the Dance, which can become an opportunity to travel around the world and to perform Irish dancing around the world. So it would be extremely popular in Ireland, and to wear the dancing dresses and to wear the shoes, it's really popular. So there are 2 types of shoes. You have the soft shoe, which is what the girls were dancing in the video, and then you have the hard shoe, which is what you see in river dance. So you practice with both types of shoes. So it's really, really popular in Ireland. Yeah, good question.
I've got a question too.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for spending time with us. And so Kevin spoke about the famine, and the question is, how did it affect Irish traditional music? Did it have an effect on that?
Yeah, so the 2 of us can answer that one, I suppose. Kevin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I could take it from the point really that, and I wrote a book about this actually. This book, A Happy Type of Sadness, is a journey to Irish country music. A lot of Irish music travelled with Irish people to America, and it's one of the fundamental parts of American country music. Do you know American country music? Like Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Emmylou Harris, the country music of the Southwest. That is one of the huge influences Irish music has had on world culture. Now then, circa you might know more about what it did to music in Ireland.
Yeah, so the main thing, like Kevin said, as a result of the famine, people left the country and they emigrated. So we would have had very talented musicians leaving our country. So we would have had well-known fiddle players like there was a man called Coleman. He left, and they would have all left and gone to America. They brought Irish music with them to America. And as a result, today you would have pockets of areas in America where Irish music would be particularly popular, and where it has integrated with kind of the folk music in America. You would have centres set up in America, Irish centres, where a lot of Irish traditional music would be still played. And those musicians, they're generations on now, still come back to Ireland, obviously pre-COVID, to compete in Irish music competitions in Ireland, and to become what's known as an All-Ireland champion here. So in effect, it made Irish traditional music travel more abroad in a way, so that it became more global.
Yeah, and there's one other aspect that we could add to that. I think after the famine, as I mentioned, we had a kind of a Jansenistic Catholic revolution. We had these priests come over from France, but hand in hand with that, we had a movement towards cultural nationalism. Like, people got more proud of their historical, this is before we had freedom, of their literature, music, etc. And you had organizations. We had what was called the Celtic Twilight, where by Yeats, you might have heard the poet W.B. Yeats, and some of his friends promoted traditional poetry, music, literature, and made people proud of it, and made them think, well, hang on, we should have our own independent Ireland. So the whole thing of music and culture was underpinned our eventual freedom.
Thank you, Kevin. That's very, very true. I'm going to play you some. Let's hope now. I'm going to play you some modern music, and it shows you that everyone in Ireland, Lorenzo, like you asked, all the young people think that traditional Irish music is really cool, and they are very willing to try it out. And if you make me a co-host there, Gaia, I'll be able to share. I think my co-host has been, because I somehow left the meeting with the storm. I can share a screen with you and show you how Irish music is constantly evolving. It becomes more relevant to young people all the time, and they love it. And a lot of pop music has taken on Irish music, and let's hope that this works this time. And I want to show you 15,000 people who gathered in Galway City to perform the Galway Girl. I hope you've heard of this. And you can see lots of young people.
Come on, Galway, let's do this! 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So this is called the Galway Girls. Just watch all the people that are playing instruments, young and old. These are concertina, guitar, mandolin, banjo. So 15,000 people turned up to sing this song. And they have reinvented Irish music all the time. Different cultures. We have a lot of Japanese visitors, Chinese visitors that love Irish music and learn to play it. It was the biggest performance, a street performance that Ireland has ever seen. bagpipes, the washboard, which came from America, and the violin or the fiddle. So Kevin spoke about the famine, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the English did try to help the Irish people during the famine. And Lord Trevelyan was in charge of the famine relief effort, or giving food to the Irish people for 1 year. But basically he felt that the Irish people were to blame, and that it was God that punished them for the famine because they were lazy and they didn't have any morals. So it was a racist attitude of England at the time that also did not help the people of Ireland. So this is a story about a young boy called Michael, and he wanted to feed his family. And so you might recognize the song, especially the tankas. And here are the words first. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn, and the prison ship lies waiting in the bay. So this is a very famous Irish song that you can hear at rugby matches. It's called The Fields of Athenry. And the chorus goes, low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched small free birds fly. So here is Michael, and he is starving, and he has stolen this Indian corn, which was very unsuitable for human consumption, which the English had given to help the Irish. And he was sent off on a boat to Australia. He was transported to Australia. And here's my brother. He is going to sing the song. His name is Michael. And here are the words, you know them.
I heard a young girl calling, Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's corn, so the young might see the morn. Now the prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, we had dreams and songs to sing. Now it's lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling, nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they put me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity.
So now everybody sing along if you can. Come on, Sorika.
We had dreams to sing.
Again, everyone. Where
once we watched small free birds fly. Oh, so we had some songs to sing. It's lonely, it's over to.
Very good, very good. Now, so this is my friend Kathy, and she is going to tell us all about the tin whistle, which is a very, very important instrument in Ireland, and it is learned by every single child in primary school. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a little talk about the tin whistle.
So I'm a friend of Ursula's and Kevin's, and I'm going to give you just a little bit of a musical demonstration. I believe your focus is the famine, or is part of your focus of this group. You're going to be talking about the famine in Ireland. And I was trying to think of some music that would maybe portray, I suppose, the sadness of the famine, and the sadness of the famine in any nation indeed. But interestingly, around that time in Ireland, there wasn't a whole lot of traditional music written. And probably because people were just so busy trying to survive. There were some songs written in some of the Gaeltacht areas. Those are the areas where people still speak the Irish language today. But very few, as it happens, and very, to our knowledge anyway, really no instrument. Whistles here. I'm going to hold them up. So this really big one, that's called the low whistle, and that has a very deep sound. I'll show you a little bit on that afterwards. I'm going to put that one down. And then I've got all these other tin whistles, okay? And the tin whistle really, it's used very effectively in Irish music, but it's actually an instrument that's used in a lot of folk music all over the world. And I suppose every country has their own version of it. So I have a number of tin whistles here, and they're in different keys. So you can see they're kind of all different heights, all right? And obviously the longer ones are the lower ones, and so on. And my favorite whistle is actually the E-flat tin whistle, which is, I think, let me see, this one here, this little one here. But the most common whistle used in Ireland will be the D whistle, which is this one here beside it. You can see it's just that semitone longer, if you like. And in our primary schools in Ireland, sorry, now I'm just putting down the other whistles. Most of the children at some stage in their primary school education will learn to play the tin whistle to varying degrees, but most of them will have learned the whistle at some point. So it's often, as a little instrument, it's often much maligned, but it's actually a really great little instrument, and I still really love it. It's still my favorite instrument of the whole lot. So now I'm going to give you a little flavour of a slow air, Manana Heron, dedicated to you all and to the people who lost their lives during the Irish famine. And please forgive me because I haven't been playing very much recently, so I'm a little bit out of practice, but it'll give you a flavour.
So that's Kathy playing Manona Heron. And when this is finished, I'm going to play a song by my brother Dominic, and it's about Ellis Island and a girl that leaves Ireland all by herself.
Guys, this is a song from written by Bernard and Graham about a little girl called Annie Moore from Ireland, who left Ireland's shores during the famine years. In 1892, arrived in Ellis Island, absolutely terrified of what was ahead. But
so Ellis Island was an island off New York that processed the immigrants from Ireland because they were so full of disease, and from all over the world indeed, because they were full of disease, and it was an inspection station. So they were inspected and granted permission to enter the United States.
Still, it was a land of hopes and dreams. So very quickly,
you might know this song.
Snippet of a song that I'd like you to hear, and hope you enjoy.
the Isle of Hope, the girl that took off, that went to America all by herself at 15 years old.
On the first day of January 1892, they opened an asylum and they let the people through. And the first to cross that threshold of that isle of hope and tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was all of 15 years. Isle of hope, isle of dreams, isle of freedom, isle of peace. But it's not the isle you left behind. An isle of comfort, isle of pain, isle you'll never
So you can see that the famine permeates all our music.
But the Isle of Hope is always on your mind.
And now we have Aina.
My name is Aina Marin, and I'm going to be playing the fiddle, also known as the violin, depending on whether you are playing traditional or classical music.
Aina is 17 years old. He also featured on the video of the Galway girl.
Hi, it's Aina back.
He also
again
plays
now
the
with
harp.
The harp. The harp is another traditional Irish instrument. To play the harp, you have to pluck the strings. To change the key in which you're playing in, you use these pegs. And now I'm going to play Eleanor Plunkett by the famous harpist Thurlock O'Carolan.
So the harp is synonymous with Ireland. It is the symbol of our country. And it is very popular with young and old people. It is synonymous with Ireland, but it originated from the Egyptian lyre. So this is my friend Deirdre, and she is going to sing The City of Chicago. Now the story of Chicago is that by 1850, 1/5, 20% of the population was Irish, because so many of them had left Ireland and went to Chicago, where Chicago was a new city at the time, and the Irish built Chicago. So please listen to Deirdre and sing along if you know the words.
And Kathy's and Aina's. I'm going to sing a song called In the City of Chicago, which is about the Irish famine. So I hope you like it. In the city of Chicago, as the evening shadows fall, there are people dreaming of the hills of Donegal. 1847 was the year it all began.
So this song tells the sadness of the people of Ireland thinking of their home country and wanting to be there and building Chicago. Finally, I'm going to finish my little piece with somebody asked, did young Irish people like to dance and to use traditional dancing? They certainly do. So these boys have made it big. They've made it big in America and all over the world. During lockdown, they had started dancing and they have made it on to America and England and all over the world. They're in huge demand. So please welcome Corda. They're dancing from the tips of Mora. They brought a modern twist. They're dancing to a Shakira song, and she loved it, and she has shared this video worldwide. So they made it in English television and American television. So most of them are around 17 or 18 years old, and they have been competing against each other. So then they decided to get together and make it big. So they have lots and lots of followers on TikTok and in social media all over the world. So I hope you enjoyed those little pieces. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, Ursula.
Thank you, Kevin. So, Gaia, I hope that you all enjoyed our little presentation. It was just a little taste of how the Irish famine has affected Ireland and how its music has remained relevant, because I think it went all over the world and came back again, changed and reinvented. I'll hand you over to Gaia.
Yes, hi. Okay. Do you have any question? Did you enjoy?
Hi, I'm Fiammi. I'm from Milan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation on Ireland. It was very beautiful. We didn't know about this great country. And was very interesting also to see a people, to see a nation very affected from their tradition, so musical also. So we were very, let me see,
impressed.
Yeah, impressed. And we have a question. Sorry, my English is bad. A lot of time I don't speak English to the people. And it's a question for Sorka. There are many types of Irish dances we have seen. And I know the river dance, for example. If you just tell something about the river dance.
Okay, so River Dance was the show that caused Irish dancing to explode in popularity in Ireland. So it was first performed on the Eurovision Song Contest when Ireland was hosting the contest in 1995. It was the interval act, and it was only a short segment in comparison to what the big show is now. But it was so popular after that performance that the composer, who's known as Bill Whelan, he decided, along with other composers and music producers, they decided to put it together to form a big show that has a story. It has created a lot of employment in Ireland. Like I have many friends that have gone into river dance. You can join it as a musician or as a dancer. And before the pandemic, it was traveling all around the world. Just as COVID-19 hit, I had a friend who was a musician in river dance, and she was in America at the time. So the obviously the show had to stop and had to fly back to Ireland. But like was shown in the snippet of my video, a lot of the dancers would have started off like the two girls in the video, and they just keep competing in different competitions to build up a standard of dancing that would enable them to join the cast of Riverdance. So I suppose it can be regarded as a cultural tool for Ireland, where we can showcase our talent, but also it can be regarded as a source of employment for many performers in our country as well.
I have a question. I know for sure that British people, they're generally uptight, they have no eye contact. So when they go to pubs, they loosen up, they socialize, and I don't really think they do play music. But what about you? I guess you love pubs, but do you play music? I think so.
Yeah,
am I right?
That's right, yes. So the group that was shown in the video, the small video there, we, before COVID-19, every weekend we were kind of booked to play in different locations. So we'd form what is called a session. So there might be 4 or 5 of us in a session in a pub, and we would play for sometimes about 3 hours. But we enjoyed it so much because we didn't see it as a performance. We saw it as a social gathering for us to play tunes, and we would share tunes with one another. Like if you had a tune that was new for you, you'd play it for your friends as well as for the wider audience of the pub. And then these sessions or playing at pubs is also a big part of Irish music festivals in Ireland. So where I'm from, there is a very big music festival of Irish traditional music that happens every July. It's obviously postponed at the moment, but it would be full. All the pubs would be full of different sessions and different musicians playing together in groups and sharing tunes. So there is no, I would say, no one is shy. Everyone just loves it because it's such a social outing for us that there's no even need for us to loosen up because we're already ready to go.
Yeah, when I went to London,
yes,
nobody would speak to me. It was kind of a shock. Oh. And the only person, besides students from other countries, the only person who would speak to me was an Irish boy. So. Oh.
If you had come into the pub where I was, you'd be in the middle of my session.
I guess so.
Yeah. We love talking to people.
Yes, Christina, I will bring you.
Are there any more questions? We just would like to say that myself and Kevin and Sorika, we teach for Viaggiare online. We do online lessons now. As we used to do, Kevin, you used to do a lot of homestay visits, as in like the Tankas used to stayed with us for a while. We had a fantastic few weeks during the summer, and we are teachers with Viaggiare, and we do a lot of work online now. My brother, actually, my third brother, felt very badly that he didn't get a chance to play. So I hope you'll listen to him before you go. He plays the guitar, and he'd be very, very upset if you didn't hear him. So it's to do with the modernization of Irish music. So I'm going to leave you with this little tune. So it's just that Irish music is constantly evolving, and that's what keeps it alive. So you use lots of different instruments. There's no constraints in the instruments that you use. But his band plays a lot of traditional Irish music as well as rock music. And they mix it together. So I think, Soraka, you'd agree that you can use any instrument to play Irish music with.
Absolutely.
Nobody would care what it is.
No.
So I hope you all enjoyed our show, and it was lovely to see you all turning up. And I'll say maybe Gaia wants to finish up with a word or two. Gaia?
I would like to thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the evening. Did you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. And Kevin, would you like to say a few words before we go?
I would like to say for us, very attentive audience, and I hope we get to meet some of you sometime. I hope this pandemic ends and we can all travel soon.
Yes. And Soraka?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank. Hello? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd like to thank Gaia for creating this opportunity, and thanks to everyone for listening. And I hope you enjoyed our little snippets and my impromptu playing as well.
Okay. Goodbye, and thank you very, very much. And good to see the Tankas again. We will be in touch with you, Francesco and Ornella. Thank you, Gaia.
Thank you,
everybody.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you in Ireland.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Stay in touch. Bye-bye. Chiudo.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Tommaso, is Kevin there?
Hey.
Yeah. Kevin se n'è andato. Is Kevin there? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay.
Ciao a tutti. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. I end the meeting. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Ciao Gaia, grazie.
Ciao. Grazie a voi.
Ciao Gaia. Grazie.
Ciao. Ciao Chiara.